So we are at the India AI Impact Summit. I have with me Chris, the Chief Global Affairs Officer for OpenAI.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Chris. How is India
I know
treating
I've
you?
arrived when I'm doing an interview with you. This is big time.
You're just being too nice, Chris.
Yeah.
No, but how's India been for you so far?
um, I love this country, first of all. It's just one of these places that when you feel it when you get to the airport and you get off the plane. The energy here, is palpable. I think the ambition that exists both at the national level, government, companies, down to the builders and developers and really everyday folks. It's like a tremendous, like people do want to build things here. It's a country that thinks big, acts big, and builds big. Even earlier today, Sam, our co-founder, Sam Altman, and CEO, did this event at ITT Delhi.
Yeah.
It was like 1,000 plus students. And it was a real conversation about how people are thinking about AI to build things that are going to be, AI of, for, and by India. And look, as we think about, just even from the OpenAI perspective, this is the second largest market in the world for us. We have 100 million people who use this on a regular basis. A third of those are students. And in particular, so you have almost this like inherently strong AI literacy dynamic that exists here. But what's especially interesting is how many people are using it to build things. So we released this product called Codex, which is this agentic AI coding tool, right? You could either be a software engineer, or you could be someone who really doesn't know that much about coding, and you can use this to go build things. You literally put a prompt in, and it will start to do the work for you, both short-term and long-term. And India is our fastest growing market in the world on Codex. It's like a 4x growth since we really introduced the latest version of it over the last couple of weeks. So when I say that the energy here is palpable, it is. And I do think this country is incredibly well positioned as we go into the intelligence age to be amongst the leading countries that are building this and benefiting from it.
But from an OpenAI point of view,
Yeah.
what do you see is India's biggest strategic advantage? Is it the talent that you get here? Is it data science or anything else that you have particularly identified?
So the talent density, I think it's a combination, and maybe these are just two sides of the same coin, which is the talent density and I used the word earlier, ambition. This is a technology that, I'm going to use a fancy word that no normal person would really typically use, but this is a technology that rewards those who take agency in it, because it does lower barriers of entry, because it scales your individual capabilities and ability to learn, to think, to create, to build, to produce, and in so doing allows you to really participate in the economics as an owner of it. Like your actual ideas and labor can really accrue to your benefit. And I do think that there is some kind of a entrepreneurial gene in the people of India. Like it comes back to that ambition point. So I do really think. I mean, look, we were talking off air, and I'll try to make the connection here if I can. Bear with me. I've gotten into sort of only a little bit. I don't want to overstate my knowledge base, but following the U.S. cricket team at the World Cup here. And it's pretty amazing when you just sort of look at the roster of players. I think almost every one of them, if not every one, was an Indian American from India. I think the star player came from here, was a software engineer in the U.S. I mean, it is almost like the quintessential, incredible story of incredible talent from India coming to the U.S. and having success. I do think what is interesting is, as the U.S. has been playing here, people have sometimes called them India's Team B. But I think what's really going on in AI right now is that the type of talent that you see in India is actually really staying in India. When I walk the halls of OpenAI, the number of people who are building things for us and building the future, are of Indian origin, Indian descent. The pride they have in their country, the interest in coming back here, and building, again, for India, by India, of India, is quite strong. So it's a very long-winded way of saying like the talent you have here, and the ambition that talent has, I think in many ways meets this moment. And the final thing, this may be a strained analogy, and sorry for this very long answer. I find it incredible to be here. I'm old. I'm not old enough to have been in the U.S. in the late 1800s, but the what I've read and heard is, in the U.S. in the late 1800s, as the U.S. was exploding, with the industrial age, like it was, almost exploding at its seams. People coming to the country, people interested in building things. That was sort of the front end of the industrial age. And when you're here on the ground in India, you almost have a feeling that some version, an Indian version of that is happening at the front end of this intelligence age. Um, we fundamentally believe that the world needs to build out on democratic AI. India is the largest democracy in the world.
Absolutely.
Like, it is all of these things really coming together.
And then obviously that makes an obvious choice for
Yeah.
OpenAI to come into India and expand. Now, before I talk more about
Yeah.
that, you briefly brought up cricket.
Yeah.
For our common love for the sports,
Yeah.
you have also partnered with cricket to like sort of take OpenAI and your products to more and more
Yeah.
people. How did that idea come out? Because it looks like a very obvious decision again, but yet we
Yeah.
don't see too many big tech companies take that route.
Well, first of all, I just think generally, I'm a sports guy, so I love sports. I think sports often serves, as other cultural things, as a real bridge, right? There are a lot of people in this country who are already using AI. Maybe there are others who are just beginning to hear about it. This is a country where cricket is a passion. We just had the Super Bowl in the U.S., which is America's football, right? The America's sport. And we did a version of what we're doing in India in the U.S., where we actually sort of basically created some version of a widget. You ask a question about the Super Bowl, the chat will engage you in a conversation about it. And so we thought, why not do that in India? I get the AI Impact Summit's a really big deal, but cricket is a really, really, really big
It's a
deal,
religion.
right? I'm very humbled. The AI Impact Summit may be second to the T20 taking place, the World Cup taking place, but really it's a great way for someone who's maybe just hearing about this to be able to actually engage with it, because you really have a conversation. Like you can. It's one of those things where you can actually start to ask strategic questions. How should we be thinking about it? How what should their lineup be like? What should their strategy be like if under this particular scenario? I know this will be hard for you to believe, and some people may even be looking at to sort of make some educated guesses on who they should be, putting their wagers on in terms of who's going to win. But I'm not endorsing that or condoning that.
No, absolutely not. In fact, fun story. There's this football team coach in Spain who actually was using ChatGPT to like sort of get the strategies for their matches and all. In fact, he made a few signings using that. Anyway, so my thing is, but have you?
That's, by the way, a great point. You are seeing sports teams really using this technology to help give them a competitive advantage. So yes,
which is what I was coming to. Like, have you sort of thought of a more deeper integration just than branding, where OpenAI, you just don't see OpenAI play cards or screens or branding, but like teams are actually and players are actually using it to sort of gain insights.
I don't know specifically in cricket. I would make an educated guess that is happening. I certainly know in other sports, basketball, what we in the U.S. call soccer, the rest of the world calls football.
Yeah, football World Cup happening this year.
Yeah, football. I mean, those, and like I've talked with a number of individuals. In fact, I actually had a conversation this morning with an executive from one of the prominent U.S. national basketball, professional basketball teams about how they're thinking about building AI, and both for the competitiveness on the court, but also for the fan experience. The whole thing. So teams are, and look, if there's anyone from the professional cricket circuit out here, I'm your guy. Give me a call. We'll get to work.
Absolutely. But coming back to from away from sports back to tech, what sort of other partnerships are you looking at in India from a data localization infrastructure point of view?
Yeah, a couple I'll just highlight, and we're going to be talking about some of these later today at some, on the main stage. Okay. One of the, and some of these are really big, and some of these, maybe a little bit more targeted, but they're all really important. We announced a partnership with 7 of India's leading universities, like ITT here in Delhi. I think it's AIMI, which does the medical, one of the big management schools. But I think there's about 7 of these different leading colleges and universities to bring our tech to about 100,000 students.
Nice.
As I said earlier, roughly 30 plus million students already are using chat. This is going to be a real program to sort of build out that agency idea, across different universities within different sectors. Yes, tech, but also management, also medical and science. So really excited about that. We're going to be doing an event later on today. Did an event earlier this morning with the government of Maharashtra, where we're doing an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, to build out basically laboratories of democracy, right? They want to be able to take our technology, create a sandbox so that startups can put out ideas and initiatives so that government will deliver its services better. So, and then of course we did, the really big announcements over the last couple of days with some of the biggest and most important private sector players, in all of India. Jurastar, we also did Tata. The Tata partnership is both an enterprise where we're going to help train and certify AI for the hundreds of thousands of workers, both blue collar working folks and a white collar, but also a big data center piece. And Jurastar is, one of the biggest, consumer-oriented companies here in India, doing a great sort of enterprise partnership with them. So I think we've really tried to hit all levels, right? And then, actually one of my favorite events is I did a dinner on, I think I'm losing track of the days, I think Tuesday night or Wednesday night. And it was with about 30 companies, all the companies that you would recognize, some long-term, some relatively new. And it was, and it was basically a conversation about how they're all really starting to build AI into their different functions. And it was, again, the takeaway for me that India is really on top of its game here.
So just one last question. 5 years from now, with all these initiatives, all these efforts, what would success mean for OpenAI in India?
Oh, India's national cricket team has built this in, and as good as they are today, they will be even better as a result. That would be real. No, I think here's how I think about it, which is I do think I'll use a historical analogy if I could. When the printing press was created, it was in you can tell I get to pretend I'm a technologist. I was really a history major in college. I get to be amateur historian, very much emphasis
now
on
I know
amateur.
where the 1800s reference was coming
Yeah,
from.
right. So late 1400s, printing press basically gets created. At the time, most of the world was more or less in a similar economic place. And I'll take two places that went in very different directions, because I think this answers your question specifically. Europe, because the Catholic Church existed, there was a baseline of literacy, and because the continent was distributed with many different countries, there was an inherent democratizing of information, right? There was not one central government that said this is what gets printed and nothing else. And as a result, knowledge got spread through Europe, and you can do a pretty clear through line from there to the Enlightenment, to the age of science, age of discovery, the Reformation. But then you compare it to China at the same time, late 1400s. And the imperial dynasty was concerned that the printing press was going to spread information that potentially would have challenged their control. So they really controlled the type of information that could be printed. And you go back 500 years, and those places just went in very different directions from a political perspective, from a societal perspective, certainly from an economic perspective. And I think if you look at India today, it is very much, if you sort of thought of AI as our time's version of the printing press, it is very similar to sort of where Europe was at that time, which is a really strong baseline relative to the rest of the world in terms of the literacy of it. And as the world's largest democracy, a place that, the Prime Minister talked about this yesterday, you feel it in every one of the meetings that you go to. You even feel it, frankly, when you talk to the CEOs and heads of these large companies. There's this ethos of how do we make sure we're democratizing access to this. And so I think 3 to 5 years from now, I think that there's a real chance that India is not only the world's largest democracy, but it's accelerating its path to becoming the world's largest society in terms of middle-class people because everyday people are really using this technology. A farmer in rural India using it to increase yields. A young doctor coming out of one of these schools that uses it to be able to treat patients and change healthcare outcomes. Or these developers. I mean, thousands of these developers at this event in the Sand this morning. Like those people, I think 3 to 5 years from now are going to have companies that are going to be incredibly successful companies, not just here in India, but globally.
Yeah, absolutely. But that brings so many questions to my head, and I think this is an ongoing conversation. We're really
as long as you have me back.
Yes, I will be.
So I come back, I get the cricket, and the Indian food.
I'll have you play cricket.
Yes, the Indian food, and the food too.
Yes, absolutely.
The food, I have to make sure I tell when I go, because I've gone to a couple of these restaurants, and I always have to say, make sure you do it like the way you would do it for an Indian and not for. And it's so good.
But thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, and all the best for all your plans. I hope to catch up with you soon and more of these dialogues and conversations, because I think this is going to be there for a while till the whole industry sort of matures.
I mean, look, I think part of this country's success in democratizing this is conversation. This is a small piece of it, but an important piece of it. These types of conversations. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.